Okay, welcome class. I am sharing how to do the head honcho role for the lit circles today. So this is the head honcho role. Okay, so you should be able to see me and my computer screen. Okay, the head honcho, it's kind of in the title. You're the big honcho. Okay, you're the boss per se. Okay, so for your responsibility during the lit circle, you're responsible for keeping the group on task. Okay, so you need to make sure that if you see someone getting off task, like talking about something other than the book, that you just say to them nicely, like, hey, Bob, you need to make sure that we're talking about the book. Let's not talk about prom right now. Or if you see that note that someone's not answering questions, you get their opinion. Just say like, "Oh, hey, Sally, what do you think about that? Why don't you tell us what your opinion is?" So make sure that you're getting everybody to be involved in the group discussion, and you don't allow the group to get off task. Because remember that during the Lit Circle meeting, that's the one time you guys can affect each other's grade. Okay, so if anyone else gets off task, then it affects everybody's grade. That's the one time you guys can affect each other's grade. So make sure as part of your job, you keep everybody on task so that way everybody gets a good grade for the Lit Circle. Okay, so, but what you need to do to prepare as your role work going into the Lit Circle is first you're going to create the agenda, meaning who's going to go first. Like, if you're like, let's say, I would suggest, since you're doing the summary, I would actually recommend that you go first because I think that it's best to kind of start off with a summary of the pages that you guys read. Okay, so if you're going to do it that way, you're going to put down here who goes first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and so forth. Remember, you should have taken a picture of who's in your group and what role they're doing. So let's say if you're going first, put head honcho and put your name. Don't just put your role, or don't just put your name and your role and who's going first, second, third, fourth, fifth, okay? And what you're doing. It gives you instructions here. So make sure that you read all these instructions. Don't just rely on just my video, because if you do that, then you're going to be missing out on the minute details, okay? So before you get to the meeting, you have to have read the section of the book that is signed for that meeting. For example, for the first meeting, you'll be reading the first section of the book, okay? I've given you the page numbers for the first section of the book. You have to have read that. Once you've read that, you're going to create your agenda, right? And then your role work is to create a summary, right, of the pages. So read this here carefully. These instructions are very important. Okay, the summary, you are being graded for grammar. Grammar counts. So every time you make a grammar error, it's going to be points off. So make sure you proofread your grammar carefully when you're done with your summary, both forwards and backwards, like I've taught you. Okay, you're going to use this actual sheet of paper as your notes sheet. But the reason why I told you have to have a computer with a printer is because you have to print up your summary at the end as well. Okay, so when you make the summary, you put the chapters or page numbers there. The setting, where and when it took place, main characters, all that stuff, the conflict. And here's where you can take notes. So on this part, you can either do it in full sentences or you can do it in bullet point notes if you want to. But in the end, you're going to have to type it in full, like, paragraph form. So on this sheet of paper, you're just taking your notes as you read, so it's easy. You can jot down, like, the main events, okay? And I would definitely do that as I read, so that way you don't forget what the main events are, and that way it makes it very easy. At the end, you just type it into nice, pretty sentences, okay? And then you cite at the end, with the author's last name and page numbers you read, like pages 1 through whatever it was, like 160, I don't know, whatever your first section of your book page numbers are, okay? All right, so when you're done making notes on your summary and you've completed the first section reading, or the reading of that section for that Lit Circle, you're going to, like I said, type up the summary. Okay, you must also, so this is the thing that's important. You're going to have to submit 2 copies of your summary. You're going to submit a copy to Google Classroom so that I can check for plagiarism. And I will have a place for you on Google Classroom where it will say like Head Honcho Lit Circle 1. And you're going to submit it on there, turn it in on there, so that way I can check for plagiarism. So make sure you are not looking at the internet at all to help you with the summary. Do it from your own brain. As you're reading, you're taking those notes. So that way, when you go and write your summary, you're not plagiarizing at all. You're just taking what you put down as the main events, and you're making it your own legitimate summary. Because if you take things from online, you will be counted off for, it'll be plagiarism. And if you're plagiarizing, remember that you can get written up for that. Colleges can see that. It can cost you scholarship money. That goes on your permanent record. So do not plagiarize from the internet. This is your own legitimate summary. Like I said, just take notes as you go, and you should be easily able to type it up at the end into nice, full sentences, and then you'll have a good summary. Okay. So you're going to submit one copy of your summary to Google Classroom so I can check it for plagiarism. And I'll check through turnitin.com. And then you need to print a hard copy. In the end, what you're going to put into your group's binder is this sheet that we're looking at, the rough copy sheet, basically, and your final copy summary. Your final copy summary that you've typed up nice and pretty needs to go on top of this sheet. When you type it, use MLA format, Times New Roman, 12-point font, double spaced. I want you to write that down right now. Make note. When you type it, Times New Roman font, 12-point font, meaning the size, and it must be double spaced. Make note of that. If you don't know how to double space, let me show you. When you go up here, if you're using Google, if you go up here to this little arrow thing, it says line spacing. Click on that, and you will click down on double. That's what double spacing is. It does not mean you hit enter twice between things. That's not what it means. I had people put 2 spaces between every single word thinking that that's what double spacing meant. That's not what it means. It's an automatic setting that you put on your computer before you start typing, and it's right there. The little line spacing thing, you go to double spacing, you would click that. I'm not going to click it right now because I don't want mine to change right now because I have lines on mine. Okay, so after you're done and you've typed your summary and submit to Google Classroom, you're also going to come up with one discussion question. When I say discussion question, I do not mean a fact recall. Fact recall are things like, what was so-and-so wearing, or what happened in the book? Because those are things that you can, they're just factual. You just look in the book and you can give me the answer. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a discussion question. Okay, examples of discussion questions would be like, if you were in the situation that Sue and Bob were in, and describe what the situation was, how would you feel? Or how would you handle it? Would you have handled it differently? Why? Have them explain. Okay? Something to get them discussing the book. That's just one example. Another example of a discussion question might be, can you relate this to something else you've seen in your own life, like a movie, a book, or maybe you know someone who's gone through this? If so, what was it? Why? If you say no, then why not? Why can't you relate to this situation at all? Why can't was this the first time you've ever encountered something like this? That's just a discussion. That's an example. I'm kind of making up stuff off the top of my head and off a book I haven't, read yet, because I'm just giving a general example. So make sure that your discussion question applies to what's happening in your book. But it's not fact recall. It gets the group discussing. Okay, then here, below that, you're going to answer your own question. So you're going to pretend like you're answering your question. Remember, you must write in complete sentences, and in this part, I am checking for your grammar. This part right here, you do not need to type up. Since you're turning in this paper into the binder, make sure that this part, the discussion question and your answers, are full, complete sentences on this sheet of paper, so that when you put this sheet of paper in your binder with your typed up copy of your summary, that this part is nice and neat and the grammar is correct on this part. Okay, so this part where you answer, you have to write in complete sentences, because I'm grading that directly off the hard copy. Okay, so you're going to answer your own question here. Make sure it's thorough, meaning more than one sentence. And once again, you check it for grammar. Okay, proper grammar, complete sentences. So you're pretending that you're answering your own question. How would you answer it? Okay, and that's what you do for your role work. And once again, make sure you read these directions here. And remember that your role work is due before before the meeting into the bind. It has to be in the group binder the day before or the last class before the meeting. If it's not in the binder with the typed copy of your summary plus this sheet, so basically you're turning two things in to the binder: this sheet and the typed copy of your summary. Plus, remember, you have to turn in one copy of your summary into the Google Classroom, but the hard copies, you're putting these two things into your binder. Okay, and remember, it has to be in your binder before the class before the meeting. Okay, otherwise, no late work. Remember, no late work. It's irrelevant. You have to have the work beforehand, because otherwise, what was the purpose? We had to have it to share the information. Okay, all right. Let me end the video.